G'day and welcome to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups. We're still in lockdown for another month. So I'm helping out my mate Alex at Mig Welder Australia. We're going to be rebuilding some upper control arms for the Mini. I'm going to show you how to press the bearings out, how to repack it and reinstall it. So before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your comments in the section below for things that you want to see me do. Now before we start, just want to have a shout out to my mate Alex at Mig Welder Australia. He's located in Shanes Park, New South Wales, which is just outside of Penrith. So whether you're looking at getting it a full engine rebuild, whether it's a custom paint job and installation of something specific, or even if it's just some spare parts for your Mini, hit him up with a contact number listed below. So these are the arms that we're going to be working on today. We're going to be pressing the bearing out of there, and we're going to be replacing the shaft as well as a couple of new seals on the end, and we'll probably end up giving it a bit of a clean up with the whizzer as well. Now there's a couple of videos out there of how to replace these bearings, how to pull them out. You can use specific tools, you can use washers, you can use coins, you can weld. I'm going to show you the easiest way that I've found, and it's going to involve a MIG welder. So let's get to work. Now, like I was saying before, the method we're going to be using is with a MIG welder, and we're going to be using an M10 bolt. So all we're going to be doing is getting the bolt, we're going to be inserting it into the end of the bearing like this, and then we're going to be welding the top of the bolt on to the bearing. Then we're going to put a socket over the top, use a couple of washers, and then pull it out like that. Okay, so before we start, we're just going to go through the parts that we have. You got 2 seals followed by 2 roller bearings. There are 2 spacer washers. There is a thicker one, and there is also a thinner one. Now the thin washer goes towards the back of the car, whereas the thicker washer goes towards the front of the car. Also, it is imperative that these 2 grooves on each of the washers face each other. We have 2 nuts, 2 spring washers, a plate which goes towards the front of the car along with the shaft. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got the arm mounted in the vise, I've got the MIG welder going, and we're going to weld the bolt in the top of the bearing like this. Now you can actually see there is a bit of a lip between the top of the bearing as well as the outer arm. Someone's actually pushed this bearing in too far, so you want to make sure that when you reinstall it, that it is nice and level with the top of the arm. So I don't have my welding mask with me at the moment, so I'm just going to do a couple of tacks. Now we just want to make sure that we don't look at the flash, but we want to also make sure that we apply enough weld to the bolt as well as the bearing that we're going to be able to pull it out. Make sure you've got a good earth strap as well. Okay, so I've got 1 tack in there. We're now going to apply a couple more tacks. Now you want to make sure that when you're welding this, that when you are applying the weld to the bolt and the bearing, you don't actually weld it to the outside of the arm. Alright, now that we've welded it, it's time to put the socket over there and pull it out. So we're just going to grab our socket. As I said, you can get a 30, 32, or in my case, we're going to be using a 1 5/16, I believe it is. That's it. Pretty much this is a socket that you want to use for your hub nuts or your crankshaft bolt. So it's going to go straight over the top there. And then because we already have a threaded section here, as well as an end of the bolt where there's no thread, we're going to put another socket on there. So it's going to give us a little bit more depth. So that one slides straight over the top, then we grab a nut and we're going to wind it on. Now here's Tomo's handy tip of the day. Everyone's got a bucket of bolts or a drawer full of bolts at home that we all go through for hours and then trying to find the right combination to nut and bolt and washer for that one specific component we're trying to build in our cars or motorbikes, trailers, whatever it may be, on a daily or weekend basis. So to save you spending all this time going through all the bolts and washers to try and find the right combination, separate them all into nuts, bolts and washers. That way it'll make it easier next time you're going to go find the right bolt to suit the right nut. Now to share the load and to save you putting all the stress on the bolt, we're going to use a washer as well, or even 2, however many you've got. I've only got 1. We're going to get a nut, and then we're going to grab a spanner and wind it on. So all we're going to do is grab a spanner or a socket, and then we're just going to start turning it bit by bit. And as you wind it on, it's then going to pull the bearing out. So just do it nice and gently until you feel it start to get free. And then we can start again to do the other side. So that's it. That's how you pull it out. It's that easy. So we've actually got the bearing on the inside of there. You can probably see a little bit there as well. So all we're going to do is unwind the nut, and then we're going to start on the other side. All right, so I've just finished pulling apart the first side. We're now going to start doing the second. I've just finished tacking it. So we're just going to put our 2 sockets back on, along with our washer and our nut, and then we're just going to wind it off. Remember, you only really want to tack these on. You don't want to be welding them on completely. You just want it to be able to hold. That way you can pull straight out. Okay, so in this case, it didn't want to play the game, so we're going to have to re-weld it. Okay, so the second attempt of welding it didn't go according to plan. So what we're going to do is just get a screwdriver in here and just push out all the roller bearings, and then we'll be able to work our way in and be able to pull it out. Okay, so I tried to weld the other bearing and pull it out like I did on one of the sides, but sadly the inner race decided to come out and leave behind the outer shell of the bearing. So I found in my toolbox a drift, which is just the exact same size that I need to be able to push this out. So that's just going to slide straight down in through there until it comes to a complete stop. I'm going to grab a hammer, and then we're going to push it out. Okay, a couple of good hits and she'll come straight out. All right, there we have it. We got the bearing shell out. Now the next thing we're going to do is reinstall it. So these are the new kits here. So we have a nut, we have a spring washer, and then a flat washer, followed by 2 bearings. So 1 bearing is going to go at each end, and then at the opposite end you got the exact same setup here. So these little rubbers here, they go over the end of these spaces here, and that's what seals the unit. So what you're going to do is, once it is inside the upper control arm itself, there's a grease nipple just here. So once all this is cleaned up, you're going to be pumping in grease through there. So the grease is going to push itself all the way along the shaft and then come out the ends. You know it's full when you start to audibly hear it start to crack, like you would greasing a tail shaft, for instance. You're applying the grease until you can hear and see it coming out of the ends. Now you need to be very careful installing these. You don't want to be applying too much pressure, otherwise we're going to be damaging it. Now these bearings go in a particular way. At the top, we have a flat surface. On the underside, we've got a curved surface. Now the curved surface is going to go inwards. So the flat side is going to be in line with the flat on the top of the upper control arm. So all we're going to do is put it in here, and we're going to grab a hammer and just gently push it in. Okay, so that's almost flat, probably 1 more. There we go, that's exactly now how you need it to be. So when pressing in bearings, you need to be very careful that you apply enough pressure on the outer race and don't push the inside in too far. Now, because I used a soft face hammer, it's going to be the most ideal tool to be able to press them in. If you'd use a steel hammer, you'd probably find that you would damage the outer race, which would then cause internal damage to the bearings, and then you're going to have a bad time. So once you've done one side, you then flip it over, and we're going to redo the other side as well. Alright, so once the bearings are in, you're then going to put the seals on the end of the control arm. Now, I find it easier to reassemble this now rather than when it's in the car. Otherwise, you'll find you'll sit there and you'll fiddle around and you're trying to hold it and the suspension's pushing down and you're fighting against everything. It's going to give you a pretty hard time. So fit the seal on each end. Then you're going to grab your spacer washer. You're going to fit one on the inside of it, which is going to go towards the firewall. Now, remember, the firewall is what separates the cabin, which is where you sit inside the car, to the engine. So that's going to go on the firewall side. Then you're going to reassemble the outside of it, and this one's going to go towards the front of the car. So once it's inside the car, you're going to slide that into the tower and then slide this all the way through until it comes out the other side. Once it comes out the other side, that'll clip all the way in, so then it will seal at the end. Then you're going to grab your spring washer, put it on the end, followed by your nut. Make sure that when you're finished, you fill it full of grease and you audibly hear and see the grease coming out of both of the ends. Once that's done, you've reassembled it. These do tend to wear over time because they are rubber as well, so keep an eye on this. If you haven't done this before, check your upper arms. Even if you're going to purchase a vehicle, check the seals on them. If they start to go, pull it out and rebuild it. Thanks heaps for watching, guys. As I said before, if there are other methods out there that you use or that you like to recommend, please leave it in the section below. Have a great day, stay COVID safe, and we'll see you next time on an episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups, all things DIY and mechanical.